Welcome to the Esports Awards Origins podcast. This is the podcast where we speak to your favorite creators, individuals behind the scenes, broadcasters, and from time to time, some of the best players in the world. Today, it is a massive honor and privilege and something I'm personally looking forward to because I get to speak to somebody that I've been watching for nearly 20 years, somebody who I've had the pleasure of meeting several times in the past, and somebody who has quite literally defined how Counter-Strike could be played. It's my pleasure to introduce Christopher Alesund. You may know him as Get Right. Get Right, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing pretty good. I basically just arrived back from the major, and I noticed that I'm starting to get sick. But I hope I'm not sounding too rough because I feel like I'm gonna get sick. So hopefully I'm not
It's
soon
the
enough
land
in
flu.
Christmas, and that's the most important thing. It's still a week away, so it's fine in that way. But I'm here. How are you doing,
Listen,
Trevor?
I'm very good. I'm very good. There's some lovely sunshine behind both of us. We can enjoy a little bit of conversation before maybe we get some fresh air. Just quickly to explain, this is the Origins podcast. So we want to talk a little bit about where you came from, how you got into gaming, how you got to be the influential superstar on NIP that you did. But just before we do you know that our origins were like a couple of months apart? Do you know that when you were close to SK Gaming back in, I don't know, 2009, 2010, the SK Gaming 1.6 team and some of the Dota players flew out to South Africa to attend an event. I organized that event. So we could have met all the way back then.
I mean, I didn't know that you actually technically did it. I mean, since you and me met around those times, little years later, and we actually did speak about a lot of things. I do remember that you talked about in the past, but now also that is ages ago. So it's the memory can always be not on pair with everything. But now when you said like, so you were the person like responsible for it, that I didn't know. That's really cool. I just know that those guys who flew in from the Counter-Strike team at that time, they said it was an amazing time. They still time to time tell me the stories about it and so on. And you also know when you tell a story again, it always shifts a little bit. So
Exactly.
I don't remember like more than you said. It was such a hell of a good trip. That's it. And you're like,
I will
last
say
time
this
is
as well.
different.
I will say this as well. There's so many different aspects to it because the team came up for show matches. It was great. Yours and my origin was very special for me because you were one of the first Counter-Strike players that I got to meet in Cologne. It was in 2013. I explicitly remember it because it was after both an EULCS event and a CS event. And we started chatting. And I actually cried tears of joy later that night because you're somebody that I'd been watching for years. 2013, Ninjas in Pajamas. It's one of the highlights of anybody's career, like the peak that any could happen. But before we get to that, I've had my little moment. Now we need to talk about you. Let's talk about your childhood. What is your earliest and first memory of playing games?
Oh, as any person that's born or raised into gaming around that era, I played everything. I have played, I mean, even in the background, World of Warcraft, but I don't want to touch that because I'm a very bad player in World of Warcraft. I told Trevor before we started, so he already know, like, okay, we avoid that. But I played Red Alert, I played StarCraft, Warcraft, CS, Half-Life, Unreal Tournament, like any game you can think of that I'm not really mentioning now, there's a high chance I played it and tried out because I'm born and raised in Sweden. I have three siblings that all are older than me. I'm the youngest of four, and two of them are brothers to me as well. And we all got introduced to computers very, very early. So my oldest brother, who I really, really looked up to, he had our first PC basically. So I was, the youngest one. I was allowed in his room and sit next to him when he's, trying out different games and so on like this. And one day when Half-Life was the biggest thing around, especially was a first-person shooting game, which was very kind of rare and also like, how do you say it, like revolutionized basically the gaming space, you can say, because of all the mods that got added into Team Fortress 2 or Team Fortress was very also something that I touched and played a lot, and those kind of games. And one night, Counter-Strike, a mod was appearing there. So I'm talking literally basically maybe a month or two after it officially got released as a mod. I actually start playing Counter Strike at that time. So I am weirdly enough also still playing Counter Strike, but it's CS2 now.
Yeah.
But I've been through basically every single version of Counter Strike, even the one because I'm from 1.6, and even though this bullshit between 1.6 versus Source players for a while,
Yes.
I did also play CS Source a little bit, but
Well, hold on. Let's stop, because I want to dial back just a little bit because
okay,
um, for anybody that's watching that maybe doesn't know the timelines, there's
yeah,
two things that Christopher's alluded to that I'll build up to. Number
yeah,
one, Counter-Strike Source, let's say the early 2000s, Sweden and Counter-Strike were untouchable, right? But again, let's just take one step back. I know that DreamHack in Sweden, in Jönköping, especially in the early 2000s, DreamHack tournaments, DreamHack competitions, the DreamHack LAN. There's 10,000 plus people that attended DreamHack. I had the pleasure of attending in 2008 and 2010. I went there with Call of Duty, so I saw it myself. But as somebody that would have been a young teenager, what was LANs and competition? How did you learn about esports? Because I've got the gaming. You come from a
yeah.
gaming family. You got taught it, but then how do you learn? How do you? What's the first esport you see? What's the first competition? What's the first time you go? Maybe I want to look at that.
Uh, I I think my question will surprise a lot of people, because this is will probably sounds like what is he talking about basically, because I'm gonna go back and talk about like I think my first ever competition I really saw, and I don't even know how and why I went in there, but I saw one of the first CPLs. So I'm talking literally like in 2002 or something like that.
Yeah.
I know there was LAN parties, because I was very fortunate enough with my brothers, and I attended in Sweden. And if I mention them, like no one will not really understand it, but CPL, maybe some people will understand what it is.
Listen,
But
Fatality was a big part of
yes,
the most recent Esports Awards. He was inducted into the Esports Awards Hall of Fame a couple of years ago, and he was the
mm.
one that brought on board like Tasteless and Autosis and a number
Oh,
of new candidates from this year. So you're speaking to somebody who knows about the Cyber Athletes Professional League, somebody who watched Fatality, and for our younger viewers, this is what modern esports looked like back then,
yeah,
and it showed what it could be, right?
exactly.
Unfortunately, there was other things that went wrong, but I mean, watching CPL in 2002 as your first kind of introduction, that must have made it look very appealing, very attractive, right?
I mean that as well, but also around that time, frag movie was a big thing in Counter Strike community. Everyone did their own niche. Sometimes it was like techno, like rock, or any specific things for that. But I do remember, I think the website Gotfrag was very big at that time as well, America website, and they did like behind the scene videos of like the teams playing CPLs, and I don't know how even. I mean, remember I'm 12 years old or 11 or 13 or something. Like I barely don't even understand what internet is. And I stop on those kind of videos of seeing like SK Gaming playing some German teams. I even saw some of the Quake videos, even Painkillers, etc., like that, from those events in CPLs, and I got like so mind blown. I mean, I'm a kid, remember? I like everything that's shown to me. I'm just mind blown completely, where I'm like, what is this universe? Is this reality? Is this a real thing? I mean, I don't even know if I know the word
Yeah.
reality at that time, to be honest. I mean, I barely could speak English even as well. um, but the thing is, like, I just got hooked when I don't remember if I watched the NIP versus X, what, 3X, no, X3 or something, like that American team. It's a very like towards the old school grand final, because it was a American team against a Swedish team, and the
Yep.
Swedish team won. It became overtime. The rules were completely different at that time. It was basically like you play off the time, not by rounds to some degree. It's
Yeah.
like it was
They
very, very
changed
blurry.
something. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah, but I was one of those few lucky ones, I guess you could say, that went into HLTV at that time and spectated by myself. There's no stream,
Wow.
no YouTube, nothing like this
Yep.
was not even a
Yep.
thing at that time. And if you even happen to like find something like that, that was more like a radio. You listen in to
Yeah.
casters commentating game. So if you connected it good enough, and those times was always delays, and your internet connection was always like a big question mark, right? So if you had the radio on, you can be very lucky that they actually follow the game, so you can like almost get it balanced out.
Yep.
But at that time, you also were so afraid of like leaving this HLT thing, because if you did, you would lose your spot. The radio
Yes.
thing was not an issue.
So
It was more in game.
can I tell you something as well, by
Yeah,
the way? The radio issue and the original voice only thing, voice only commentators. I'm a couple years older than you, so I
yeah,
got to watch pretty much the same things, but being a little bit older and also living in South Africa, I never had the chance to compete. The word shoutcaster comes from the name of the plugin for Winamp that you'd start to get your audio feeds. um, I remember these times really well, and I can hear you're inquisitive, you're invested in gaming, competition is kind of appealing.
yeah.
You're a 12 or 13-year-old kid, 1.6 is blowing up. When do you realize you have a talent for Counter-Strike? When did Counter-Strike become, let's be honest, when did it become the only game, right? How old are you, and when did you start competing?
I think, to be honest, I think it actually was at around that time when I watched my first tournament. I mean, I did like anyone else. I played a lot of other games, but I think slowly, steady, like stepped away. So like, here's 10 games, and here's CS, and it's like, if this is like going away from that, it's just more and more and more hours, and then like 1 hour a week or 2 hours a week of like those 10 games, and then all of a sudden, like I figure out you can play practice game with 4 other people. And I also like, my voice was very like, light voice at that time, when you grow up. I don't know how you what's the word anymore. I
In
haven't spoke.
English, you haven't broken. Yeah.
I'm broke, yeah. So I even faked my age because, like, people didn't want to play with someone that sounds like a Muppet, I guess you could say. I don't know. So it was quite fascinating at that time. But then, I understood, there's LAN tournaments in Sweden, also online cafes in Stockholm. You can go there and meet people and so on. And I got like so hooked in at that time. So I spent also a lot of time at one of the biggest online cafes in the world at that time, or became eventually Inferno Line, which is a very notorious and known place in Sweden, in Hull, where SK Gaming, for example, had their base as well. So if you were lucky enough, you can actually sometimes even spot those kind of guys walking in there, having their own practice rooms, etc. at that time. And as a kid, and watching them, you're like starstruck to also see them walking around, and you have your own, PC here, and then you're like, oh, was that Potty? Oh, really? And then you're so mind blown by it. And I think I just like, started to follow. I found all the websites after that, how to download demos and watching the demos, understanding what they did on that run, what did they do to counter the enemy team and so on. So I got like really hooked in, and I just took up more and more time. And I was very fortunate enough, my parents let me go to sleep at 3 in the morning, but they were always serious about, I don't care, like, just go to school and do your best in school. I was not a good in school, by the way, but I always went to school, and I think that's why the reason why I sleep so little now, because I was surviving on like 4 or 5 hours of sleep, or even less sometimes.
I will say this. I will say this. This is not something that I will recommend to any of our younger listeners,
Oh, no, 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 no.
obviously. But I will say this on the other side is, Christopher, I've had the pleasure of speaking to you a few times. I've watched your career, I've watched interviews. You are a very humble guy. You're not the most chest braggy, right? But when did you know you were good? When did you realize that you get?
Sometimes, you're
Yeah.
don't forget, I grew up also young in this industry. I'm pretty sure someone would tell you like, he's a humble guy, but he also can be a little bit of a douche.
Hey,
Like,
hey,
I
listen,
mean,
we keep the personal stuff between friends. Okay, these are we're talking
exactly,
the
exactly.
professional get right. But like, when did you realize that you were? When did you realize you were good? And like, decide that you wanted to, let's say, take this more seriously now, like the
Yeah.
beginnings of your career.
I think like 17, 16, I would say. So it's not too many years after I literally got hooked into it. I had this rumor of like, I am pretty good at CS in Sweden, and I'm playing all the time. I was like, this is the guy, the ultimate geek, basically. That's what people see on me. And I put everything on the line and was super serious about CS all the time. Um, so people wanted to like test out, am I good on LAN? Am I not good on LAN? Am I potentially cheating, or I'm not cheating? Like, people wanted to like test me around that time. But for me, I think of those years I spent at that LAN cafe or online cafe or whatever you want to call it, that helped me and defined me of not being that nervous while playing, local LANs where there are people standing literally next to you when you're playing a game against another team. Because at that time, everyone was just standing around each team and
Yeah.
watching the games. And of course, sometimes I failed, sometimes I was winning, sometimes I was playing really good, sometimes I was playing really bad. But that's part of the gig, to be honest. But I always go back and tell people usually it's one player. His nickname is Fret, who is part of NIP nowadays, and someone I played a lot with through my early years, who basically took me on his wing and basically like taught me team play and understanding of tactics and so on. And he took a gamble on me when I was that young and literally like, hey, you want to go to a LAN tournament and have fun with me and my good friend and two other guys that weirdly enough didn't really have any connections between each other. And then we went to a LAN tournament and basically stomped the competition. And everyone looked at the paper of this team being like, this is like not even a D team, this is a F team. Like they're not going to do
How
anything.
did
And we
this
won.
happen?
Yeah, and we just crushed everyone. I played really, really well. And then I got invited to his team, basically, which was called B Group at that time. And a couple of months later, there was qualifier for EWC, VCG, I think later on. But
Yeah.
I don't think I played those with that team
There's
because it went so
yeah.
quickly for me.
I also
And
just want to clarify really quickly. It was the ESWC, the Electronic Sports World Cup. It's
yes.
a different version, different
Oh
tournament
yeah.
from the
Oh
one
yeah.
that we see today. I just want to make that clarification. Yeah.
No, but it's smart.
Yeah.
But also, it was like it's a French organizer. They always had it
Yes.
in Paris, and this is basically a competition of they try to do like maybe you can say like Olympic games because every team were national based. So it's
Yeah.
like you had the best team from Sweden, you had the best team from Canada, US, and so on
Yep.
like this. And but you also had so many different games, which was like again you can say like once or twice a year. When at that time you had like all those games combined at same tournament, everyone
Yeah.
hang out together.
Because
You actually meet.
there was two big tournaments back in the day, the Electronic Sports World Cup and then the World Cyber Games. Those were the two
Yes.
big ones. And then you had things like CBL,
Yeah.
CPL, CGS, you had these other tournaments running at the same time. I want to ask you something now about this time and
Hmm.
this practice and the development of Get Right from B Grip
Yeah.
to Fnatic and SK. But give
Yeah.
me a second, because Get Right's career over the next few years would put him in 5 major finals back to back, would pick up the victory in the Cathedral Counter-Strike in Cologne,
Yeah.
would be declared the HLTV Player of the Year for 2 years running consecutively, plus an additional 2 years of the second best player. He has 10 HLTV MVPs, an 87-0 LAN map record with NIP, and one of the longest and greatest trios with Forest and Exist. Okay.
Yeah.
That's the Get Right you grow up to. Did you have any inkling when you looked at those first matches with B Grip, when you looked at that first tournament, that that was what the trajectory would look like?
I mean, I would lie if I say yes, but I can do, however, say that I was very young and I have a small memory. I told my mom that I said like esports will become like this big thing of like what things are today. That I know. So I was very delusional kid at that time. Like I was because I already got because at that time sometimes when like for example WCG in the World Cyber Games they had those big events in Korea sold out arenas basically already at that time. So I already saw a little glimpse of the future to that degree where I'm literally like this is gonna become the norm in esports. So I think that's why I thought already about it and then like okay it's gonna be bigger and better, but I never understood like I personally would go to that direction because I just loved Counter Strike to be honest, and I just loved competing, and I hated losing
Yeah.
very strongly. Like I think Foreign, another guy who speaks a lot about history in esports in general, and you can have a debate about him and all of those things, but he's very good on knowing knowledges. And I
Oh,
think he
yes.
mentioned one thing because we've talked a lot of times about esports and everything outside of esports, But he said like there's moments in my career, even in 1.6, when I was potentially becoming the best player, that he have heard that basically after a tournament at that time you don't have practice tournament or pieces at the tournaments and so on. You're basically going there playing, and if you don't do well, you're basically done, and then you fly home basically 4 days later, 5 days later. But he have heard rumors that basically even if I played the tournament, I won the tournament, I became the best player of the tournament or the second best player of the tournament, I will go home directly, and then I'm sitting and playing for like 14 hours straight, just perfection my craft already. Not taking a day off, even when I'm coming home and I fly half across the world. I literally going back to my home, say hi to my family, went up to my room, and then just practice again, because I was never really satisfied. I just wanted to push my limits more and more and more and more. And I did that for years. So maybe that was one of the things why I pushed myself and getting into the pleasure of playing with the Forest, for example, and Exist and all of those players that I played with through the years, because I pushed myself to the extreme, I would say. But to your question, no, I don't think I will ever really see that it will become. But I'm just happy that I was part of the history of building something, and that I'm also still around, which is something that
Absolutely.
I'm so happy with.
Listen, Christopher, get right. You left a massive impression on viewers. I was somebody that watched your tournament play. I became aware of your name when you had the Fnatic jersey on first, and then I didn't watch too much of SK. I'm not going to lie, because I was into League of Legends at that time.
That's
But
fair.
then
That's fair.
once you joined Ninjas in Pajamas and went on that massive run, you put yourself in front of my eyes and everybody's eyes, and even as a not like hardcore Counter-Strike a Go viewer at that time, I was aware of your try hard attitude. Of the word you used earlier was nerd. I'm only using it because you used it, but it's true. I think the commentators, the interviews that kept it, because like you really were just, it's just the game. That was the thing that you pushed yourself for. When you think of that younger version of yourself, and you think about how you were approaching the game, I think it's fair to say the Lurker role, the modern understanding of the Lurker player, the Lurker in CS, was defined by you. So stop. Is that fair? And if that's fair, like, is that something you thought about? Is that something you actively worked towards? Like, how did you focus on your specific game?
The thing is, when you said you didn't watch SK in that way, but that's actually where it started. And actually, that's where basically the build up of this whole Lurker role to that extreme level that I became very known for. Because literally when we formed that team, and it was me, Forrest, I left the Fnatic. It was a big scandal in the CS scene that we left.
It really was.
I took their best player with me basically, and then joined the rivals, and the rivals between SK and Fnatic, and I think it still is to some degree. They hated each other, if you can use that word.
Yeah.
And then we're building up, with 3 other SK players, which we also know before. So it's not like we don't know each other. But I still remember, I think it's like the first week of practice, or maybe 2 weeks of practice, and our IGL or captain of the team, you can say, Robin, basically literally during a practice, and I still remember the map, it was Nuke, and he basically said
wow.
I don't remember the score or who we played or anything like that, but I remember it was Nuke specifically, because that's what he basically told me, like, Chris, I want you to do something for me. He basically say that straight up, like, and I was like, oh yeah, what's up? I want you to basically be the most annoying player on the server. You can do basically whatever you want. I don't care what you do. I don't care how you get there or whatever. You just do what you need to do. Because I believe in your clutch ability. I know how you're reading the game with that well, and so on. I don't remember more exactly what he said, but he also used completely other different words than annoying, I can say. But annoying was like the defiance of it. And when he said basically and gave me, the open line to it, to basically like, So I thought about it a lot, and then I defined myself as saying like, okay, if I'm gonna be this kind of player that he wants me to do for this team, I basically should play not with the team at all. And then like if I'm playing with a team, then I need to know how everyone plays. So I started to then study my teammates to the core, and I know exactly what every move they're gonna do based on any given moment, even when it's 3v4 or 3v5 situation, and I'm still alive on the server, or I'm counting their nades on enemy team, understanding what they're gonna do in XY rounds and so on. I call it pistol rounds most of the times at that time period, if I'm not mistaken, as well. Not the gun runs. Sometimes the gun runs, like the first weapon run. But me as defining, that kind of thing that he gave me the opportunity to do, basically. And then, I just started to basically do what is the norm nowadays in any esports game, where like, I downloaded demos because once again, YouTube was not that big at that time, or streaming either. So if I'm gonna do my research of knowing people's pattern in the enemy teams, I need to go and download a demo. It takes a while, then just walk it through like, seconds by seconds by seconds, not speed up or anything, and just look exactly how people behave, and especially doing hours in and out. So that became like, my part of my schedule, basically, you can say. So playing hard with the team, practicing with the team, my individual levels, then hours in and out of analyzing the enemies, which is the norm nowadays. You have analysts, you have coaches, looking through what people are doing, how to anti-strat them, and knowing X or Y thing. But that was not a thing at that time, but I already did it. So him giving me that opportunity. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So he gave me that opportunity and told me like, this is what your role is.
And can I tell you something as well? I want to build onto this, right? I really appreciate how you've explained that, because that SK Gaming roster was incredible. And I mentioned it a couple of minutes ago, but the number 2 HLTV player of the year back to back was 2010, 2011, was while you're wearing an SK jersey. It was at this time frame that you're learning and figuring this out. 2012, I think, is when Go drops. And then 2013, 2014, you pick up the number 1 player of the year, HLTV. The NIP roster goes on to, frankly, take over the world.
Yeah.
How did the NIP roster become so good so quickly? Admittedly, it's with the new game, right? So it just, as a fan, it felt to me like you guys just understood this game at such a better level than anybody else. Before you even talked about team play, before you even talked about tactics, you're just like, these guys just play this fucking game better. End of story. Yeah. And then they also were good and nerds and had the strats and had everything as well. So what's the origin of NIP and that incredible, 87 map run?
First and foremost, though, I have got confirmation. I think I still have a message of 2012. I am actually the best player in 2012. So technically,
3 times, back to back.
I'm technically that, but then it's also that weird transition. So it will never be official, never be like that. But I think if I really dig where I know the guy who did it at that time, if I dig really deep into it, I think I have a screenshot or a message when he literally says who, where is where and where, and I'm number 1 on that one.
I believe you. I believe you. Trust me.
So it's not a delusion or of ego boosting myself in that way. That guy can potentially just confirm it or not if he wants to. I'm not sure if he's that active anymore. Either way, NIP, I think the weird thing with the NIP is just basically hand-picking that team. Because it was also a combination of 1.6 and the Source players, weirdly enough. And I know Source in Sweden was not big at all, so it was kind of hard in that way. But one of our former owners at that time knew the players and helped them out or sponsored them to some degree, we'd say, because they had like a computer company, like PC company at that time, so they helped them out all the time, because they also needed better PCs than us in 1.6. So they had to deliver it,
Can I also give one more little shout out here for any of our non-historical Counter-Strike fans and viewers? Counter-Strike 1.6 was the de facto competitive title when Source released. 1.6 and Source kind of lived in parallel, but there was this awkward period where, much like Dota and League of Legends, the communities had very strong feelings towards one another. You played one or the other. And when Global Offensive dropped, it was kind of the bridge. It brought everybody together. So what Gerard is alluding to here is in 2012, these two communities that had developed and grown side by side and had a lot of animosity towards one another. Now all of a sudden we're crashing together. And that's also, again, why it was just fascinating to watch at the time.
That as well, but we also were the first team to also jump on board with Go. We had the luxury, most of us also having the beta keys. That potentially also helped us why we became that good, to be honest. But it was not like, we had it for years or something like, no. It was like, but it's still a while though. But I think it was also a bit of a combination. We both were taking 2 source players, and 3 from 1.6, and also everyone from 1.6 are like, superstar in their own way, and you have really good source players. But Fifthline was one of the players on Source, also helped us to understand the engine more and also understanding the game, how it works, because he had way more similarity to Source than 1.6. But we brought in this whole mentality of, because Sweden has never really been known at that time period of being like, oh, we're a very tactical team. We are more working our communication and team play and adapting. Yeah. That's how our games are based on, and that's the DNA of Swedish Counter-Strike, where Denmark is more tactical and team play, etc., like that. And German teams at that time, I could also say it's similar, but we always believed and strongly on our individual level, but also like when we talk and the team play and adapt to the situation and just trying to break through. So that's why you can see during those times we can do the most stupidest rounds ever, and it actually worked out. But it's just because everyone was on the same page. But then doing this team in NIP specifically, I think the first tournament we ever played was kind of early as well. And I'm not talking about the very first one, because the very first one was just Swedish teams. We won that one. But we're going to Spain, to Valencia for a DreamHack, and there was a rumor of they're gonna have basically first CS:GO tournament, international one, 8 teams only, teams from Portugal, us from Sweden, France with very games were literally like the gatekeepers of Source at that time, like winning like everything for like a couple of years. Have also like a all-star lineup, best players, and everyone's like, yeah, they're so good at practice. They bring their own pieces to tournament to warm up, and they do everything and travel with monitors and all of those things. So I still remember that both Fifthline and Freiburg, our teammates at that time, and also the Source, they were like kind of afraid of them. And me and Forrest and Sist are like, the first cool. Like, they're first and foremost from Source. We didn't have respect, remember that, at all as Source players. Yeah. And we're like, it doesn't matter. Yeah, they won over us on like a random online game. Doesn't really matter, because we also have the mentality online is nothing. LAN is everything. And we go there and we smack them directly in the grand final, winning that. And then I think I still remember like Fifthline and Freiburg are so happy, because I think they also never won over them in Source. So they were like, we actually won over them. And we are basically standing there like, told you. Like basically that night negative attitude, like, it doesn't matter like who they are and something. You can look up to them, whatever you want to do, like in a negative and ego way. That's how we behave, right? But we were like, it doesn't really matter.
You have to believe that you are the best. You have to believe that you're going to win the game. You have to bring that kind of that mindset, right, to every match. What was the culture like in those magical years in NIP? You talked about it. You brought these 2 community Source 1.6 together. You're playing Go. You guys are playing incredibly well. So what was the vibe behind the scenes that we didn't get to see?
I would say, to be honest, the biggest reason why we were very successful, that people may undershadow nowadays, because now we have like international teams and everything is so much bigger than it was at that time, is that we were a family, I would say. They moved from Ireland because they lived in Ireland to work for the first what was it called? Dell, I think it was, the computer company or something like that. They can tell me if I'm wrong. Something. Moved back to Sweden for being professional and back to us to Sweden, and also live in Stockholm. And we did like a lot of things outside of the game all the time, not just playing. I know that Fifthline Forest became very, very close friends as well. And the rest of us also hanging out. Exist who lived up north. He came down quite often. We had boot camps all the time. We went out to like watch movies. We play NHL games on consoles, and being young idiots, if you can say it like that, like enjoying life
Yes.
together and explore the world together, basically. And I think that was a difference maker over all of those teams, was like we went all in on every aspect. And I think everyone understood it pretty directly, because we from 1.6 came in with this winner mentality, right? The source player have been like trying to break in, but we overtook them and basically manipulate them to believe in this whole winning mentality. Is like, I was also the guy pushing everyone, and Freiburg joined me a lot with like, you need to play 24/7 basically. And Freiburg, I finally had a teammate, I could say to some degree, who followed me on my journey. And me and Freiburg had this small competition on deathmatch, which is a warm-up thing you do in CS, where you, let's say it's 20 minutes and we did like, first the 200 kills. Or if we do like a knife battle during the death match, that's mean, if I won 3-2 over a 20 minutes one, then I go up to him and did like an elephant this and handshake after, so on like this. We play 1-on-1 against each other. So we always also competed in anything, like just for the sake of it and like pushing ourselves to it. And I think that's why we even today have very, very good relationship, all of us, because we explored a lot of things together, things outside of the service, traveling, like feeling like rock stars to some degree. When I think we traveled to Dallas the first time, and we went to the hotel pool and we're lying there, and I think everyone was just like, we basically made it to some degree, but I
I'll
don't
say
know.
this as well. I'll say this as well. As somebody that was watching from the outside and also
Yeah.
had the pleasure of hanging out with a lot of the Counter-Strike players back in the Cologne days, I also think Heaton was a good influence in supporting that rockstar lifestyle a little bit. When you guys were doing very well, Heaton is always a massive personality, somebody who I remember very fondly. I want to push us along a little bit because we don't have the most amount of time, and I could literally talk to you about this period of your life forever.
Yeah.
But what is the first thing that comes to mind? Because this is a tough question, but what is the first thing that comes to mind when I ask you, what would be your favorite memory with Ninjas in Pajamas?
Oh,
I know. I know. I'm aware, right? That's why I said first one that comes to mind.
It's DreamHack Masters in Malmö. It even goes before the major win, and here's the reason why. It is in Sweden.
The first one.
We have been having a couple of rough years.
The first one.
No one didn't expect us to go to the grand final or even do well at that time. And we were becoming, the team known for kicking one of the players and replacing the fifth, basically, for a long time. Which we completely disagree with, but I don't know, maybe once again we were very delusional. But then going into that grand final, and I would say guarantee 90, even to 95% of the audience in there wearing NIP jerseys or our Swedish people, and that roar and explosion that you can see potentially on a CS major, that's how I remember it so well. And I still remember when I'm walking in and I'm trying to, because my teammates always put me at first in line when the camera shows up when you walk to a stage, because they say like, you like that shit, you get like you get a good like ego boost.
Yeah, you get energetic from it.
Exactly. And I always love to hear the audience and so on like this, but I think I tried to look cool, and then it became cringe, at least in my head, how it looks like I'm walking with like both of my hands behind myself, and then I've tried to do like this. I don't know. It looks so weird.
We need to ask the producers. I don't know if this is possible. We need to ask the producers to put this in a picture-in-picture. We need to try to get the video of this right. To see if we can dig it up.
100%. But and then just winning the grand final, it felt like a movie, a movie when something amazing happens, especially like a sports Hollywood movie or whatever it could be, and when the final whistle blows out and the winning team is there, you can see, your teammate jumps up and so on, and everything is in slow motion, That's how it felt for me as well. And that was one of the few times it actually happened. So many wins I had when I'm like,
the first one.
And then in slow motion, because I was so happy with it. And then going out, take it, and it's still like you hear everyone's chanting and roaring and still, and just people are standing around and so on. So I'm like sitting also after, like on stage, just sitting there and just like looking everywhere, and I'm like having small tears in my ear, and I'm like, damn, we are that big. That's why I got that moment where like understanding how big we were for Swedish Counter-Strike as well, and how big we were with NIP as well. Well, like I knew we were big, but I didn't know how big we were till we actually won that one.
Also, another thing that's important to note as well, like the tournament you're talking about now, I just took a look. It's in 2016. Okay.
Yeah.
And you've got to remember that by this point, Get Right has been playing Counter-Strike for 14 years, roughly.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Professional, let's call it nearly 10, but competing, right? And what Counter-Strike looked like in 2002, 2006, 2010, 2016, there's so much growth, you know?
Yeah.
And I want to just move us along. For anybody that watches the Origins podcast, I tend to move on from the origin of the fame and the success or the professional side to talk a little bit more about things like health or burnout, mental resilience. These are things that I know I could spend a ton of time digging into with you. And I also know you have spoken out about it online. I'm not going to, though. We're going to save this for a different podcast, for a different episode.
All right.
Because I want to know about your transition now from being a player to being a content creator, to being a streamer, to what are the origins of the next chapter of Get Right? And what is Get Right looking at for the immediate future as well?
I mean, okay, how do I start?
That's
the next question is like, I never saw myself as a streamer, to be honest. Because I was also very early with streaming in 1.6 even. I was very early CS streamer back in those times, or streamer overall. But when I got called, and this is towards my end of my career, that I got benched.
The first
and funny enough, it was my former teammate Fifline, who was my boss, who called me and basically told me, "You're benched."
Yeah.
And I know that actually was a great call. I still remember it today. Like I think I even thanked them for it and said thank you for putting me to the side, because I will not personally leave. I felt like rocks lifting from my back and everything like that. It felt like such a relief for me personally. And then I got my first ever real vacation for like 4 months ever in my life. Since I played this game for so long, and every like vacation we had at those times before 1.6 and go and all of those things was me practicing still, refusing to have a vacation. So it was kind of weird to have a vacation that way. And then I got together with a team I work with today still, and we're planning around, and they said like streaming always is a good option if you want to take that as a first step. We can always look on other things, which we have in the pipelines as well. It's always lying there if we want to look more into it. But then the years went on with streaming. It's always been like it gets me on the like, how do you say it? It gets me more interested and more like excited and wants to go in streaming, because I don't have an issue to go like 8-10 hour stream. Even from a former professional who should probably not do it. And I'm 35, by the way. I'm turning 36 in half a year, so it's like I'm not that young anymore, or how people call it, an unk or boomer. That's what I am basically. My community still remind me of that time to time, so it's fine. But I do generally also like my tradition of streaming, because when I did stream, I did, have a lot of things easier than some other streamers, because, I come from a very long career in Counter-Strike. I'm still very relevant, if you can say like that. So
yes,
I could see myself, I was quite of a big streamer in the beginning, but I didn't like it. So I didn't really enjoy the first year, to be honest. I did, I stream for 4 hours. Yeah. Tomorrow I will see if I go live. Like, I didn't really have a schedule. I didn't really do it. I played Valorant, I played CS, I played other games, so on. I had fun with it. And I had way bigger community at that time. That's the honest truth. But I am so happy with the community I have today. I'm way more happier with what I'm building today than I did in the beginning, to be honest. If you can compare the numbers and all of those things, then people will be like, what is he doing? And so like this. But I'm in a much better headspace and also streaming space, in my opinion, because I feel like I have so many tools more now than I had potentially before. And I can pick, and I still have the luxury of I can pick and choose more now, I feel like, because I worked so hard also to be where I am. because I see myself as a different kind of streamer than most other streamers, because I also travel a lot still, and I attend tournaments and different conferences and all and so on. And that's also like I can go down there for like an hour to just explain that. But that's also part of my streaming or influencer content creator ambassador life. To be honest, I don't even know literally what my title is, to be honest. I'm always like, I'm a streamer, I am ambassador, I'm an investor. I'm like, I have no idea. But
a
it works
spokesperson, an inspiration, a motivation,
maybe I don't know. I never saw myself there.
A Hall of Fame. Look, there's a lot of titles. I will ask, what does 2026 look like for Uncle Get Right?
Well, weirdly enough, it's a reset year for me, because I have been having a rough year this year, on more private sides with family and my personal health and so on, which is not about my usual stomach issues that I have, for those people who have seen or heard that before. It's a completely different one. So I'm actually on a 1 month break as of today, which is weird. Once again, not used to it. Maybe it will be 2. We will see. I need to work on myself for a little bit, but my goal is to basically get back to where I were 2 years ago, traveling more and doing more things outside of the stream. Also trying to challenge myself for doing maybe I want to try to be more IRL stuff as well, not just specifically on the stream at home. So I have a great team behind me, and I know we have touched on subjects there and so on, but we will like literally start working hard on it and doing more things that I feel like this could be something very interesting, because I can play CS, I can explain CS, I can do those kind of things, but my community also know with me where it's like it is still interesting to me, but I'm also this time of the year, or my age line or timeline of my life is like I'm also interested in a lot of more things. So that's why I want my community to be exactly how it is. We are very vocal and open, and I mean honest. I hope I'm honest, at least from my side, is trying to be honest as much as possible, because it's still online. I'm talking just to a name most of the times.
Exactly.
But I've been also very fortunate to meet a lot of the people as well, and I want to meet them as well. Grabbing a dinner, grabbing a beer, or grabbing nothing, or just stand up and just talking about something like that, because I think that's why I do enjoy it more as well, because I'm getting closer to my community. And I think that's why my community also understands with me. It's like, hey, what do you think about this? And I would be like, I can sit and talk hours about it if it's something that really interests me, and that's how I want my community to be like. But also the usual, I think a lot of people they want to push themselves, right? I think that's always a good goal, but I wouldn't be, how do you say, unsatisfied if it didn't go everything that I want to do potentially for next year. But I just want to push myself to the limit, but I am personally happy with it. And if I'm happy and I have way less lower expectation overall than I had before as a professional and also the early age of streaming, so I'm pretty sure I will succeed with it. And then I'm happy no matter what, to be honest.
Can I say something? You used a word that I love. You have more tools in your toolkit. I'm somebody that's done a lot of therapy myself, and introspection and self-learning, and doing things like learning how to communicate, learning how to self-reflect, thinking about all sorts of different mental health things, and having tools in your toolkit is hugely important. So I love hearing that. I also love that you are genuinely just a fan. You just love competition, you love games, you love esports. I know this because the first time we met, you were telling me how much you love League of Legends while you were on the 2013 Ninjas in Pajamas. Like, that's wild, right? I have two last topics that I want to hit. It's one question and then a quick fire round before we let you go on your vacation.
Okay.
Gerard, you've heard me say it. I've listed your accolades. I've made it very clear that I'm a fan, I'm a supporter, and somebody who's like,
likewise, buddy, likewise. Don't worry.
Thank you. Brought me a lot of joy when you told me that. But I think when we look back, you are considered one of the greatest Counter-Strike players of all time. You have the accolades to prove it. Okay, you have a badge on your shoulder about lurking. whether you want to use the word invented, modernized, professionalized, introduced, whatever the perspective is, you had a significant impact on that. How do you feel about your legacy as a professional Counter-Strike player?
I think I even spoke about this many years ago, and I think it's good if I repeat that when I was still active, because I think someone out of nowhere, asked that question, because when you've done so many interviews that anyone who has been in esports for a long time, it becomes like, it becomes like a routine answers everything, because it's always, to some degree, always the same questions. And then sometimes someone throws in a curveball. And that's, I think it was like 18 or 17 or 19, I don't remember what year it was, but someone threw in, like, what do you want to be remembered as? And I would be like, whoa, okay. But my answer has always been like, I want to be remembered as the person that never gave up. Like, basically, why I did also have a fake name. At least in 1.6, it was more common to have like different kind of alias, not just your nickname as mine get, right? It's Don't Stop Believing. The song Don't Stop Believing by Journey, one of the all-time greatest songs. It's gonna go down until my last breath on this earth.
That's amazing.
No matter what. But that song and those just 3 letters, or how we can say words, basically means more to me than people think, because it basically resembles of the tough times I had in esports and also in life itself. And it's basically like, it's kind of not really saying, but it's basically like never give up, basically, for me, and like never surrender and never just like be satisfied to some degree, you can say as well. So I want people to remember at least my legacy of a person that refused to give up, but refused to like be satisfied with, even if he was the best player or the best team at that year and so on, that he can always take it to another level, basically. Because I don't personally see myself as a person that was
The first
talentful enough, because I already had the experience with most of my teammates for years where I'm literally like, how did you do that? Like, that's something I could never do personally, but I could, to some degree, be up there and fighting with those people of being, who is the best, who's not the best, because of how much I dedicated myself to this game. And that's where the origin of Don't Stop Believing comes from, because I refuse to give up and I refuse to not believe in it, basically. And that's what I wanted to like put my legacy on, basically. Like, don't overthink it, just do it, basically.
I really, really love that. Hard work, perseverance, dedication. Thank you so much for the thoughtful answers. And like you said, we honestly could speak for hours and hours.
100%. I mean, I didn't even ask you a question. That's the weird
this
part.
This is about you. This is your origins.
I
this is your origins. But I appreciate that. Maybe we'll have a chat somewhere else. Yeah, the very last thing that we do on this podcast is quick fire questions.
Okay.
Now, I'm going to challenge you to try give me the quickest answer or your first gut reaction.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's one word, sometimes it's a sentence, and we'll just see what we're going to give, see where we're going to go from there. Okay?
All right.
Let's start. My very first question is, what is your favorite map in which version of Counter-Strike of all time?
Nuke 1.6.
Who was the toughest individual player that you've ever played against?
Forest.
Which is the toughest team that you ever competed against?
The Polish guys. They had so many names. I can't just say one name.
Who is the most underrated teammate that you've ever had?
Exist.
Who is the best teammate you've ever had?
Forest.
I was expecting. If you had to pick Forest or Exist, which player would you pick?
Sorry, Exist, but it's Forest. It's always
coming. I thought that was coming. One Counter-Strike moment that you wish you could relive over and over that is not the Malmo moment from earlier in our conversation.
I mean, it's winning Cologne.
Cathedral of Counter-Strike.
Yeah.
Go for it. Give me a memory.
No, it's basically knowing of... It will become a slightly longer answer, but it will also make sense why I'm saying longer. It's mostly because that team was basically on the last brink of being together still. So that win means more, and that's why of that legendary picture of me crying for the trophy, actually, that's what it stands for, basically, straight up. And winning with that group of people,
Wow.
it is something else. Like I would love to win it with other people and teammates I had for years as well. It's nothing against anyone there, you know. But like I said and already mentioned earlier, we were a family, a brotherhood. You know, like we did so much things. We started our young adult lives together, basically. You know, like being idiots, good guys, whatever you want to call it. You know, like we're exploring what is right and wrong in this world, basically.
The first one.
So I had the pleasure of watching that, and it's no problem. The context is amazing. I have one last quick fire question before we ask you to tell us where we can find you and stuff.
Yeah.
Describe the Ninjas in Pajamas 87-0 LAN map streak in one word.
Fairy tale.
The first one.
I'll allow it. I think it's 2, but I'll allow it. Fairy tale's amazing. Get right.
Okay, amazing then. Amazing.
No. Fairy tale's much better. Fairy tale's much better. No. It's gorgeous. The images. I don't know why I criticize you. I don't need to criticize your answers. Get right. Can you please tell us exactly where we can find you, what your channels are, what your socials are, and what you'd like to give a shout out for your next project?
I mean, first and foremost, thanks for having me. That's the most important thing, to be honest. It's always lovely. And it's such a long time ago we actually spoke. Now it's at least an interview form. But like you said, it could otherwise been you and me for like 5 hours podcast, to be honest. Because I haven't even touched my questions to you. You know, like I think you would be like getting a lot of head twisters there and there.
Get right. You have to be promoting yourself, my friend.
I know.
We'll set up a beer date later. I've got your Discord now.
No. It's like Get Right basically on every platform you can think of. I stream usually at least Monday to Friday, sometimes on weekends, at least 8 hours. That's the goal. So even if you come later or early, just come in and say hi. That's the most important thing. And now when multi-streaming is very popular, like I said, I'm on every platform basically.
Awesome.
But other than that, going around and doing my things with the Monster Energy crew that I work very, very close with for the last couple of ambassadorships. So if you're on any of the CS tournaments or a random Comic-Con in a country, there is a high chance I will be just around the corner.
Well, listen, I certainly hope that anybody that's watching this will stop and say hello. Get right. Thank you so much for your time. I really hope you enjoy your vacation. Take as much time as you need, and best of luck for 2026.
Thank you, buddy. Thank you.
And that does it for us here at the Esports Awards Origins podcast, where I have had a fantastic conversation with Get Right. Stay around. We have more amazing guests joining us on the ESA Origins podcast in the not too distant future.